If you're doing intermittent fasting but you're not losing weight, you feel like you're doing all the right things, you might be making certain mistakes that's actually causing you not to lose weight. And that can get really frustrating real fast because you feel like you're left in the dark and you're just looking for answers. Listen, there are rules to fat loss. There are rules to intermittent fasting. And because there are rules, mistakes are bound to happen. That's why some people get amazing results from it, while other people struggle to get that scale moving. And in this video, I'm gonna show you the top 10 mistakes people make when intermittent fasting. Because it's always good to learn from your mistakes, but it's even better if you can learn from other people's mistakes. All right, let's dive in. What's going on, guys? Carlo Macapinlac here from newbiefitnessacademy.com. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the bell to get notified every time I post a new video every week. Okay, mistake number 1. And let's start with the low-hanging fruit. You're eating too much carbs. I'm gonna level with you on this because some people are metabolically flexible enough to be able to tolerate some carbs in their diet. It really depends what your goals are, where you're at, and what kind of intermittent fasting schedule you follow. But I'm gonna assume that you're coming at this and your goal is weight loss and you have a lot of weight to lose. If that's where you're at, your lowest hanging fruit is by limiting your carb intake. So a lot of people with a lot of weight to lose, they're overweight or maybe they're even obese, they all suffer from some level of insulin resistance, which is then the precursor to metabolic syndrome. And metabolic syndrome is an all-encompassing term for diabetes, obesity, and cardiovascular disease. It all stems from insulin resistance. That's why intermittent fasting is incredibly powerful when it comes to reversing metabolic syndrome because it moderates your insulin levels. And again, insulin is what controls your body weight. And your job, if you want to lose weight, is to moderate the insulin response from the foods that you eat when you're not fasting. And out of all three macronutrients, carbs, especially refined carbs and sugar, spike the hormone insulin the most. So if you're doing intermittent fasting right now, but you're not losing weight, step number 1 is to reduce your carb intake. And if you have a lot of resistance when it comes to doing this, I totally understand. I struggled with limiting my carb intake for the longest time. I also struggled with losing weight. So you just need to be brutally honest with yourself with where you're at and where you want to be. And think about it this way. If you have that much attachment to food, you're probably addicted to it, which means that you need to take back some of that control over that food, and it starts by limiting your consumption of it. Number 2, you're eating too much protein. As mentioned earlier, carbs spike your insulin the most, but protein can be insulinogenic as well. Now, I'm not saying that you need to severely limit your protein intake because your body needs essential amino acids as a building block to build muscle mass. But we are severely over-proteinized as a society. And the biggest offenders of this are protein powders. Because whey and casein, which is what protein powders are made out of, are extremely insulinogenic because they're highly processed. My general rule for protein is this: don't drink your protein, eat it. For the average person eating just 2 meals, a 4-ounce serving of protein should suffice. Remember, you only need 0.7 grams of protein per pound of lean body mass. If you do a little math, that's really not a lot, which means that you never have to supplement with protein powders unless you're a professional athlete who trains all day. Number 3, you're eating too much fat. Listen, I'm a big proponent of the high-fat, low-carb, moderate protein diet because it's the best diet to moderate your insulin levels. Having said that, some people take the high-fat part of that diet a little bit too far. Listen, eating fat isn't bad for you, especially if it's healthy fats. But if you eat too much fat bombs or keto bombs, or you're eating nuts from the bag, or you're eating blocks of cheese, then your body still has to process all those calories. You just have to think about it this way. You can either burn fats from the foods that you eat or your own body fat. And if you have excess body fat to lose, wouldn't you rather burn that instead? Number 4, you're eating too much. And this is kind of a summary of the first 3 mistakes that I mentioned, in that calories in versus calories out still matters, but only once you've moderated your insulin levels. For example, if you're doing a 16-8 fast and you're still eating a lot of snacks in between meals, because an 8-hour eating window is still a lot of time to eat a lot of food. For example, you drizzle everything with olive oil, you're snacking too much on cheese, nuts, and low-carb crackers, or you're making every low-carb dessert that you find, then you're not really giving your body any reason to tap into your fat source for energy. Your body will just be happy to burn all the calories from the foods that you're eating. Listen, you still need to be in a calorie deficit if you want to lose excess body fat. That statement will always be true. But again, it'll only work once you've moderated your insulin levels. Number 5, you're not eating enough food. I know, I sound like I'm contradicting myself here, but hear me out. This is the opposite of the last mistake in that you're eating too little. And I want to build on the calorie deficit point that I made, in that if you go on too big of a calorie deficit, that's going to have a negative effect on your body. And your body is going to start slowing down your metabolism. And nothing stops weight loss progress faster than a reduced metabolism. And that is something that you don't ever want to happen. And a lot of people fall into this trap, right? In that they're already fasting and they think that it's going to work faster if they diet on top of it. You don't want to do that. That's crash diet mentality. You want to make sure that you're eating to satiety when you're doing intermittent fasting. You want to be hitting your daily protein requirement. You want to be eating nutrient-dense foods. You want to fill up on green leafy vegetables, and you still want to get all your fat-soluble nutrients. And just let intermittent fasting burn body fat when you're not eating. You don't want to be absolutely miserable when you do this. I want you to delay, but don't deny. Number 6, you're not tracking your food. I know this sounds kind of tedious, especially if you've never done it before, but here's the thing. You can't control what you can't measure. And I use a free app called MyFitnessPal to track my food and my macros, and I have a separate video teaching you how to use it if you want to know more about it. Because it's extremely important to track your food, or at least to just have an idea, because there's a world of difference between a proper tablespoon of peanut butter, for example, versus a spoonful. Little things like that done repeatedly add up big time. And again, this just goes back to you having a free-for-all, eating nuts out of the bag, or having blocks of cheese, or you not knowing what a 4-ounce serving of protein looks like. The whole point of this is that it's not a free-for-all just because something is labeled to be healthy. You need to pay attention to what goes in your body. And here's the thing, you only need to do this honestly a couple of times. Once you have an idea of how much food you should actually be eating, then you don't need to do it as often. Number 7. You're relying too much on crutches. I'm talking specifically about artificial sweeteners, and this includes stevia, or drinking diet sodas or 0-calorie drinks. Listen, a lot of people are extremely addicted to sugar. I know this because I used to be one of them. And when I was just starting out, I was still using artificial sweeteners, including stevia, as sort of a crutch. And I got to a point where I hit the dreaded weight loss plateau, even though I was doing intermittent fasting. And the moment I took artificial sweeteners out of my diet was the moment where I got the results that I wanted. And time again, I also see this happen to all my students. The moment they gave up artificial sweeteners was when they really started getting amazing results. Here's why artificial sweeteners, and this includes stevia again, hold you back from losing weight. And there are multiple studies that proves this. It triggers the cephalic response in your body, in that anytime you put something sweet in your mouth, and yes, that includes artificial sweeteners, and it doesn't matter if it comes from natural sources like stevia. Your brain lights up like a Christmas tree, and it will send a signal to your pancreas to start producing insulin, because your brain thinks that there's food coming in because it just tasted something sweet. But there's no food coming in, so your brain gets confused, so it sends even stronger signals that you need to eat something. You're inadvertently breaking your fast when you take artificial sweeteners, when you take stevia. That's why the idea of a diet soda or a 0-calorie drink is one of the biggest lies in the fitness industry. But again, I'm gonna level with you on this. You can have some stevia when you're just starting out, but you need to take the high quality stuff, not the cheap variety that you can get at your local coffee shop. But again, I want you to use it more as a training wheel, but eventually you just wanna go without it completely, especially if you hit a weight loss plateau. Number 8, you're going from 0 to 100. And this is a big rookie mistake that a lot of people make, is that they go at it way too fast. But they're not fat adapted yet, they're not metabolically flexible, and this can actually start working against you because you're constantly triggering your body's fight or flight response. And we'll talk about that in a second. And it leads to 2 things. A, you're miserable, and B, it can lead to binge eating. And I think we've all been there before. Because here's the thing, you're not a light switch. You're more like a radio knob, which means that if you're at a 10, you need to bring your level down to a 9 first, and then an 8, and then a 7, and so on. Again, there are levels to this. Instead of focusing on going from 0 to 100, just focus on going from 0 to 1. Number 9, you're not working out. Listen, it's entirely possible to lose weight without exercise. One of my students was able to achieve this. She lost 25 pounds in 6 months without exercise. But that was because she was dealing with some injuries. But after that, she started working out and she got even better results. The point that I'm trying to make here is that you cannot go through life and expect to lose weight and be healthy without exercising. Having said that, there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And a majority of people do it the wrong way. Now, I have a separate video talking about what the best exercise is for fat loss, so you should check that out. But all you need to know about exercise is you don't want to fall into the trap of doing chronic cardio patterns where you're doing workouts that are a little bit too hard and too frequently. I'm talking about workouts where you're spending countless hours at the gym just on your favorite cardio machine. And it's a near-death experience every time, because when you do that, you're constantly triggering the fight or flight response in your body, which results in chronically high cortisol levels, and I'm gonna explain why that's important next. Instead, you wanna focus on doing resistance training like lifting weights, and you wanna focus on high-intensity interval training style workouts coupled with low intensity cardio workouts. And if you want a proven step-by-step plan on how to do this, then make sure you check out my Lean Body Blueprint 21-day weight loss challenge. All you need to know is that focusing on the aforementioned ways of exercise triggers a big growth hormone response in your body. Intermittent fasting also triggers a growth hormone response. A 24-hour fast, for example, has been shown to increase your growth hormones by up to 180% from the baseline. And this is something that you want to happen because growth hormones has a lot of beneficial effects in your body, like increased exercise capacity, improved bone density, it builds muscle mass, it increases your metabolism, and it's a generally recognized anti-aging hormone. So if you exercise while fasted, you amplify those benefits. Just remember that fasting is for fat loss, exercise is for building muscle. You want both. Number 10, you're chronically stressed. And I've mentioned this a couple times already, so let's talk about it. Chronically high stress levels is a major killer of your weight loss progress when you're intermittent fasting. And it can come from different forms, whether you're doing daily workouts that are too stressful, again, you're doing chronic cardio patterns, or you're dealing with too much stress in your daily life. If you're chronically stressed, you're going to trigger cortisol, which is your stress hormone. So that's your fight or flight response. So your body then floods your system with glucose. It's usable energy because it thinks that you're about to fight a bear or run away from it. But if you're chronically stressed, and this is where it gets bad, you always have glucose in your system. So now your body has to produce insulin as a response to this, which means that if you have chronically high cortisol levels because you're stressed too much, you also have chronically high insulin levels. And chronically high insulin levels leads to insulin resistance. And insulin resistance opens up Pandora's box to diabetes, obesity, and cardiovascular disease. Again, this is called metabolic syndrome. Number 11, I'm gonna give you a bonus one because this is another secret killer of your weight loss progress when you're doing intermittent fasting. And it's the lack of getting adequate and quality sleep every night. Listen, we sleep for about a third of our lives, and there's a reason why we evolved that way. And lack of sleep messes with important fat loss hormones like cortisol, which is again is your stress hormone. It messes with ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone, and leptin, which is the hormone that signals your brain that you're full. It also affects the amygdala, which is the reward center of your brain, so you're just way more susceptible to temptations. Those hormones and your body in general just doesn't work the same way when you're sleep deprived, causing you to feel hungrier and just crave the worst food. Like nobody wakes up from a late night out and says, man, I'm really craving broccoli. No, like everyone just craves McDonald's, for example. For example, there's one research that shows that when participants cut back on sleep over a 14-day period, the amount of fat they lost dropped by 55%. And there are tons of other research out there that shows what lack of sleep does to your body. And they all constantly show one thing. The less you sleep, the more you weigh. Listen, mistakes are bound to happen. That's just part of life. And if you avoid all the intermittent fasting mistakes I mentioned in this video, you're gonna give yourself a real fighting chance when it comes to losing all your stubborn weight. The next question then becomes, how are you actually supposed to eat if you want to lose weight? Because here's the thing, 80% of your body composition is determined by your diet. You can't just freestyle this part. Do you have a proven plan that you can follow? To help you with that, I want to give you a free copy of my Lean Body Blueprint. This is how I melted all the fat around my stomach without depriving myself of my favorite foods or wasting hours at the gym. It's a simple 4-step process specifically designed for busy professionals, and it's the exact same blueprint that I teach to all my private coaching clients, and they've all gone to see some amazing results. If you want to be the next success story, then download your free copy of the Lean Body Blueprint right now. There's going to be a link somewhere at the top here or in the description box. Just click on it, type in your email, and I'll send it to you right away. All right, that's all I've got. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and share it with your friends. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I post a new video every week. And hey, leave a comment below if you have any questions about this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Virtual high five.